Okay, you can put me on the spotlight whenever it's needed. I will just put it here back.
When you're sharing your screen, that's fine. Everyone can just double click on the screen and वो full scale हो जाएगा.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good evening, everyone. I guess it's evening only. Good evening or late afternoon. Okay. So sorry for my my apologies that I was a bit late today. Okay. So today, as the chapter was, it was basically about the fashion, and not exactly the fashion, the how the evolution of the clothing had happened over the period, from the old age and from the early age, I would rather say, from the stone age, and so that's how the chapter goes today. So we always talk about fashion, how it has been evolved and how the clothing has been changed over the period. Now, see, if I talk about the fashion as a formal, in a very formal way, the fashion design which had come into the picture, that was formally, it was introduced in Paris in year 1826, but that's like a modern yarn of a fashion. That's what I will just summarize this as. And it had started with the Charles Frederick, where he had changed the notion of so-called fashion of to the client, and basically he started with the with the two-way process and having the dialogue with the client and giving them the clothing which they required rather than whatever has been done, and then giving it to the client. So it was like the customization took place, and the tailor-made clothing started coming into the picture, and then that's how, and whatever the new will be coming, that will be starting from his studio. Earlier he was a draper, a formal draper. Okay, then later on he started his own studio, the fashion studio, and as per the demand, or as per the new wave of the haute couture, so called, he started this fashion streak in the society, and it was very well accepted by the society, and after that it became like never look back. And today when we talk about big names, just talk about Chanel, you talk about Prada, you talk about so many of name, Karl Lagerfeld and all. So all these are like big names in the fashion industry. Now what exactly had happened in this duration, that the fashion, it got into the mass production. Earlier it was not. Earlier it was not so much. Now it got into the mass production, where it was a society demand, and people, they started getting into the trends, what exactly has been happening, and they started seeing each other, getting influenced from each other, and then it got into the it was not only to a specific group, or so-called whatever that group might be. So it started emerging and cascading to all across in the society. So that's what the power of fashion was in the, towards the end of the 20th century. The awareness had become immense in the people. So yeah, that's how it was. If I talk about, summarize the entire thing, so-called the fashion. So if I talk about just the last 2 centuries, okay, we have been seeing fashion predominantly, if you say so. But I somehow feel that this is a fashion which is more of a modification of the fashion, okay, or so-called the modification of the style, okay. But what was the fashion when it had started from? So I will just take you very long back, okay, which was like we divide our history into 3 categories. Three particular categories. One is Stone Age, second happens to be the Bronze Age, and the third one is Iron Age. All 3 of them have got a specific period, and all 3 of them have got achievements and its milestones of their own periods. Like if I talk about the Stone Age, where the humankind was very, he was like an animal, I would say. It was an evolved animal, Homo sapiens. Okay, so he was doing it in the last session, which I covered. Like what he was doing, he was hunting, he was taking the shelters in the stones caves. He was taking the shelter under the trees. Later on, when he became a little more sharper, uh, he was becoming smarter. Then he started, emerging as a family man, and he had his own society. And then there was some hierarchy also started emerging in, which was in the second during the Bronze Age. I mean, not the sorry, in the Stone Age itself. Okay, in the mid of the Stone Age, because the Stone Age actually divided into three parts of Stone Age. So early Stone Age, mid Stone Age, and the late Stone Age. So in a simpler way, I will just give these specific nomenclature: the early Stone Age, mid Stone Age, and the late Stone Age. So in the early Stone Age, it was, as I said, it was a very raw. In the mid Stone Age, there was the flourishing, which it started flourishing, it started becoming more sharper, smarter, and then he started doing the kind of cultivation, and then he started doing the man started you know hunting and started doing the instead of having the leaves around on his body, started doing the hide the animal hides and all, clear them off, clean them off, and then wear it. Okay, so that's the kind of this is the kind of progress which was shown. Then in the third stage of the Stone Age, which is so-called the late Stone Age, that's where the wheel invention of wheel took place, or the discovery you call it, or the invention, whatever. Okay, so the discovery had taken place. So in the first one, the fire was discovered, but in the third phase of Stone Age, it was the wheel which was discovered. So that's how, and once the wheel had come, so life had started taking a different shape altogether. As I said, now the humankind started going to the started hunting near, started making the colonies or the societies next to the water bodies because of food, accessibility and water, and then started doing the cultivation as well at the same time. And this was also one of the reasons to be next to the water bodies. And then that's where and if I talk about the very first of the of the Stone Age, the very first phase, there was no religion and all. But towards the third stage of the Stone Age, then the religion started coming into the picture, and people started their worshipping, and there was a kind of hierarchy which also started coming into the picture. And the hierarchy then gradually started becoming a kind of status symbol, kind of classification started happening in that duration. So that's how I will say the Stone Age has, which is a very, very strong and a very important period of us to understand, because in that time what all had happened, that will cover up later on. Then the Bronze Age. Bronze Age, if I just summarize it, Bronze Age was the age when the humankind started doing the metallurgy. Okay, what is metallurgy? Which is like you take the ore and you beat them, you melt it, and then you take out the metal out of it. So various metals will have a various temperature, to get melted on, and they will just extract it. So that's how it got extracted from the. So what humankind did, started extracting the bronze, okay, out of which was a very soft metal that time. So started extracting and started using it in his daily life in a different manner. And the Iron Age is something which was where the iron, the more strong and the sturdy metal, which was discovered. And then a lot of things had started happening with the same, like so many tools, mechanics in the mechanical world. Now person was like humankind was getting into the mechanical world towards the Iron Age. So for the machines, for the tools, this iron was getting used. So that's how the three phase of the our history is actually. Now, if I talk about the Stone Age, which was like, as I said, it was in the first, that is the first phase of our history. So early Stone Age, what it was like 2.5 million years ago. Okay, so till 10,000 years ago. So that's the longest period of us which we have in Stone Age. So in this, it was very basic. I mean, humankind was kind of a very basic, not nurtured much more. So doing what? Doing is, you know, clothing was being done either with the leaves. Okay, so leaves at that time only in the subconscious mind, the autumn winter clothing and the spring summer clothing was there, which means that a person used to wear the, you know, started wearing the leaves during the summer and during the winter, knowing the fact that there is a property of the animal hide is warm, and so using the fur, using the hide and all, and started using it as a clothing. So, and then on top of it, how to embellish himself, how to ornament himself, he started doing the making the jewelries as well at the same time. When I say jewelry means what it was. Jewelry was basically something which was available and he had to just kind of modify it. So when I say modify means, and what was available, the stones were available, the bones were available, the teeth were available of the animals. Okay, so early man or this, our predecessors, they started making the jewelry out of it. So at least they had the sense of, you know, ornamentation at that point of time itself. Gradually, it started changing into a different shape altogether. Now, when we came to the Bronze Age, in the Bronze Age, which was like from year like 4,500 years ago till 2,800 years ago. Okay, so that's how the time period is, or the span is, where the bronze was not only just the metal, okay, for not only just the metal for ornamentation, but for the day-to-day life as well. You know? So, and people, they saw what all opportunities can be extracted, okay, by using this metal, which is semi-precious metal of bronze. And they started getting into the jewelries, and they started making the belts out of it. Okay, so that's how the clothing segment and the accessory segment started, taking a different shape altogether. And yes, metallurgy and the some mechanical metallurgy, which is more of a how it is more of a scientific term. Okay, metallurgy, and humankind started working towards it, and then that time they got to know that there are some different temperature, there are some different metals in one ore, that if it gets melted, so various metals will come out at a various temperature. So that, and started collecting various metals at the same time and using it as per their need. So that was a very interesting one, and humankind figured it out. And going back to the third one, which is not the Bronze Age, but the Iron Age. Sorry, it needs to be changed. It needs to be changed. Bronze Age, which was like, I mean, around 2008 years to the 43 years ago. Okay, like last, I mean, 2043 years ago. So up to that time, it was like a last phase. Okay, so it was a last phase of our, this period, the early period which I'm talking about. Now, in this Iron Age, the iron had come out, which is a more strong and the sturdy metal. So humankind started making it much more strong. You started using it much more rigorously in his day-to-day life, which is making the tools, making the machine parts, okay, using them in the cultivation, using them in the kitchen. Okay, so many things it was getting used. This metal was getting used into. At the same time, in the Iron Age, this what is it called? The weaving. I mean, weaving has started much more earlier, but weaving became one very strong area to look into. The clothing was not only just to cover their body, but it was to cover the body in a very beautiful manner, which looks good, which is more fashion oriented, which is more chic. So that's how it was. If you see, this is the period. Iron Age is the period where the maximum uh, maximum innovation had been done, maximum trial and errors were done, maximum experimentations were done in all possible fields, whether it's fashion, whether it's a jewelry, whether it is cultivation, whether it's kind of a drawing, art, name it. So altogether, if I say the humankind was subconsciously very much aware of the fashion. However, we say like 2 centuries ago only the fashion world has taken place, but I say that it has been happening for a long time. Just that it was not kind of formalized. Just that it was not the framework wasn't done. Okay, which could be referred or which could be put into the encyclopedia, or it could be used as a resource center. So that's the only thing which was missing. But later on, people got it. Maybe you can say that 2 centuries ago this started happening. So before going ahead, I will have one small video for you to understand what the summary of the entire talk is. Just a minute. Can you hear the voiceover of this or no?
No, sir.
No, just a minute. Hold on, please.
About clothing and jewelry from Stone Age, Bronze Age, and Iron Age.
Hello, can you hear this now?
Yeah. Yes.
It's heard. Okay. It's audible now? Okay.
First, I'm going to share with you the...
Okay, I'm putting from the starting now.
Hello everybody, today I'm going to share with you about clothing and jewelry from Stone Age, Bronze Age, and Iron Age. First, I'm going to share with you the clothing and jewelry from Stone Age. Human in the Stone Age hunted animals for skin to keep them warm. Look at the picture below. The hunters hunted animals for skin to keep them warm. When the animal skin were ready, they were cut into shape with a stone knife. Holes on the animal skin were punched with bone needle. They didn't have thread. Instead, they used sinew to sew the animal's skin. Look at the pictures below. On the left, there is bone needle, and on the right, there is sinew. Sinew is made of animal muscle tendon. Look at the picture. This is how they punched the hole on the animal's skin with bone needle. And this is how they sew the animal's skin with sinew. Look at the picture. This is Stone Age clothing. These are the jewelry from Stone Age. They are made up of shells, animal bones, and teeth. Next, I'm going to share with you about clothing and jewelry from Bronze Age. Okay. The Bronze Age clothing was mostly made of wool. Razors and tweezers were used to remove hair or wool from the animals. Look at the pictures below. On the left, it's razor, and on the right, it's tweezer. Look at the picture. This is Bronze Age clothing. First, they put on a loincloth, followed by a woolen leggings, shoes, tightened with a belt, then cloak and a hat. These are the jewelry found in Bronze Age. They are bracelet, neck ring, and necklace. Last but not least, I'm going to share with you about clothing and jewelry from Iron Age. The Iron Age clothing was more colorful. Why? Because dyeing techniques came into fashion in early Iron Age. The clothing of Iron Age was made of wool. but dye with natural vegetable dyes from plants and berries. These are the jewelry found in Iron Age. Birches were used to paint the cloak. A charm was put on as well. What do you think? Isn't it beautiful? That's all for today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Can I be seen now? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can see it.
I can't see any of you. Where are you people?
We can see the screen, and you can start with the presentation if you want to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good. So now the birth of the style, because see, when I say till now I talked about the Stone Age and the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. So there were like three periods, but at the same time, the styling, where it had come from, where it had emerged from. So there are two very strong figurines which had been figured out, which have been found by the archaeologists, and what they had done. They tried to figure. I mean, it was a kind of a debate, like whether what they are thinking or what they are debating is correct or not. But nevertheless, idea was that yes, there was a style quotient which already was there. So this is one of the figurine, which is a very small one, which is around some 4 inches or 6 inches or so. So this is made out of the limestone and the limestone and the red ochre kind of the soil. And it was a very voluptuous kind of figurine in that duration, which they figured out, like all the figurines were very voluptuous. What could be the reason? There could be reason that these figurines might be because of the childbirth or because of they were auspicious to be like that. I don't know. But by end of the day, they saw one very interesting pattern, which was like on the headgear. What exactly it was? It symbolizes some kind of a fashion. It symbolizes some kind of a style. Some people, some scholars said that it is a braided hair, or it is the hairstyle. Some said no, it is a knitted cap. But whatever it is, by end of the day, it was a headgear, and that predominantly said that people they already had the style quotient at that time. So this is one of the parts. So this is called the Venus of Willendorf. It is the Willendorf, okay? And it was like, when was it was found? It was like it was created in 2000. 28,000 years back. So that is the kind of timeline we are talking about. Now the second one happens to be another one, which is I can't pronounce it. Braspoimi. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's very strange for me to pronounce. But this is the figurine which was excavated, and in this figurine, again, it was a debatable. Like, what is it? And the most astonishing part was that it was they found the archaeologists and the scientists. They figured out that it was made on the ivory. It was an ivory tusk, which was carved, and this human figure was extracted out of it. So what was there on the head? Was that the hairstyle? Hairs were made like this or what? But later on, it was figured out that something, most likely, it is supposed to be some kind of cloth, okay, which was falling onto the hair, and that's how the pattern is taking place. But it was and it was a part of their headgear. So this is again, it shows, which is again 25,000 years back we are talking about, and yes, it again shows the style quotient in the humankind. So the idea of showing these figurines were that people of that time, they were not only just doing the fashion or style statement or delivering the style statement, but at the same time they were trying to preserve also, so that it can be cascaded down to the next generation, if as a resource center or as an encyclopedia for them to look through. Now, taking little ahead, it's a very interesting one where there was something called the gravation culture. Now, archaeologists, when they were doing all the excavation and they were trying to figure out what needs to be done, I mean, where all it will take us to, where it will, our, our direction will lead us to. So then they found out then that around some 35 years long back, okay, they found out that there are some skulls and there's some skeleton, okay, which was supposed to be of some prince. The reason because it was like it was I mean ornamented with some kind of with jewelries and all. And if you see on the top, see this is the skeleton which is here, okay. And in this one, they found out that all the like the beads, okay, and beads made up I mean not the beads, but it is made out of animal teeth, bones, and they were like grinded together. It had a hole and they were all bunched up together and they were put onto the skeleton. So it means the prince or whosoever the person is, he had died and it was put into the grave. But because of the but because of the non-taking property of the bones and the teeth, okay, so it got intact for a while, and through the DNA from the radiocarbon dating, they could figure out the age of this particular jewelry. And at the same time, they found out that there was leather also which was there. So that time, the people, they used very strong preservative, which we see that which we see in the mummies also. They were found out. So in that duration, these people, they had some kind of a chemical which they were using as a preservant, and it was so strong that even if the leather got decayed, okay, it got complete decayed, but still there was a few remains which was good enough for us to have the carbon dating and to figure out the age of the body. And if you see the people, they try to then scientists, they try to recreate it, the entire skeleton with the body, and that's how they figured it out. That's how perhaps it must have been, where on the leather, how these shells and everything has been put together. And this is the kind of fashion people they must be having. There is another thing also, like they did not find any of the clothing as such, which is so called the kapda, okay. But very interestingly, they found out that the impression of the clothing was there on the stone. If you see, this is the one which I'm talking about. So was that a symbol, or was that an indication that the weaving had already took place in that period? But it's very debatable. But however, the way it has been shown, it actually leads us to some kind of a direction to explore. So that is the best part about it, having the excavation done and the finding out these kind of facts. Now, if I talk about again, as the period went ahead, people, they figured out some clothing, okay, which were like so recognizable that they were like it was quite mesmerized to look into them. Like if I show you this is one made out of the leather, and again this is the one. So all these are the clothing which have been made either with the fabric or with the animal hide. But look at the fashion quotient in them. And there are some designs which are like so good. Like if I take out this design, so if you put a woman into it, a contemporary woman, and this particular clothing is paired up with the top, crop top and all, and with some kind of an accessories and with a bag, so she exactly looks like she is more of a contemporary woman. So she cannot be like a black sheep or something in the herd. No, she will be very much would be the part of the today's fashion generation, if you see that. However, this has been this fashion has been this fashion has been made long time back. It was like thousands of years back, which was already established. And as I said, like there are some fashions which are like so good, and which are so good that they do not need to be changed at all. And there are a number of reasons for the same, because see, there is also because our human body as such, where we have got limbs at one place, uh, body structure is as such, where it can be a drape, it can be tight hug, it can be body fitted. These are the things, but at the same time, the overall will be from top to bottom. That is the way it will be going, this fashion. And in this league, if you see this fashion, this particular piece of garment, how it is again the drape, which is of contemporary. If you see in any of the fashion show, you get to see these. So it is still being carried forward, okay, and it will still be carried forward in future as well, maybe in the different form, but yes, definitely. So as I say, the fashion is actually it's a cyclic process. It keeps coming back. 25 years to 20 years is the time period of it, where it comes in a contemporary manner. It gets contemporarized, it gets modified. Like if I give you an example, like we used to have this bell bottom and all, which was like in 70s or so, 65 to 75, 80s almost. It was a very, very strong fashion, extremely strong fashion. And if you see in today's time, again, it is getting revived. It is getting revived where it is coming as a denim. Okay, in the ladies, they wear denim, boot cut, okay, and the bell. It is not the bell bottom exactly, but it is a little smaller than that, and that becomes a boot cut kinds. And it will never be surprised if after some 5 to 6 years afterward, we get to see the bell bottom coming into the picture in a full-fledged manner. Right now it is there, but as I said, how the bell bottom has been contemporized, it has become a little narrower, a little more slim fit, and at the same time, it has changed the material, which is now it is in the denim. Now, when I talk about it, I cannot take away one thing so-called the tribal attire. As per my understanding and as per my views, there is the best. I mean, if you talk about the fashion, really takes place in the tribal areas. Really, it really does, because they still try to. I mean, they are getting contemporized, they are getting modernized, but whenever there is any kind of procession, any kind of procession is happening, or any kind of ceremony is happening, these people, they will use their traditional attire. And I mean, and it is still happening in these, like say, you Gond as a one, tribal pygmies another one, then in Amazon we are having one tribal, and then Australia we are having one tribal community. So all of them, they have got very stark different. Okay, starkly they are different, and but at the same time they have their own fashion quotient and their own culture to take it forward, and they cascade it down to the next generation. If you see in the tribal attire is as significant as non-tribal attire. If I say non-tribal attire is, we call it as a modern attire. Yes, it is significant, but tribal attire is equally important. Now, it has been seen in the long time back when we had the cave artists of our early men. So they had depicted somewhere, if you see on the wall, this is the kind of, so what it was. It was a clothing only which the caveman was talking about. It is some kind of attire which was being carried forward. If you see the headgear, there's something which is coming down here. Okay, so can you see this? Something coming from the waist. There's also some kind of an attire. Some kind of headgear is also there. Now see how it was. It transformed from one generation to another generation. Now people, they became much more equipped with the material, with the colors, with the technology, and with the tools, and then gradually it started changing its shape, and it came up to this level where the clothing and the drape also started changing, the fabric also started changing, where it is like a pattern started emerging onto the same, from the checker to the lining, all of them. Now the body paint is also a part of a fashion. Now there are some tribes, why it is during their festive some kind of a ceremony, maybe the naming ceremony, or it is a marriage ceremony. These people, they paint their body, and they become the part of that particular ceremony. Now, what happens in this also, who paints in what manner and who paints how. It is like the way we are doing the foundation and the fashion, like makeup nowadays. Exactly the same way they are also having their makeups, and the criterias are very, very different. Like if I show you, this is like, look at this lady's ear. Okay, how the this jewelry has been hung there. There are some, like, look at these ears. So what happens in this also, this is the criteria where if the more elongated the ears will be, more beautiful the woman would be. There are some, like in Japan, there are some tribes in Japan, tribal community, where what happens, the moment the kid is born, okay, the girl child is born, whosoever, so they put a metallic shoe onto the feet, because as per them, the small feet are is a symbol of beauty. There are some communities, tribe communities, where the elongated neck is supposed to be very beautiful. So the moment a child is born, they will put the rings in the neck, like around the neck. So by the time it becomes like, and each time they will be keep on increasing the ring, so that neck gets elongated more and more. So that is a criteria for the beauty. So every community has got different criteria for the beauty. Like if I give you an example, in my, I don't know, my mom used to tell me, like that my mom was not very beautiful as per the standards of our, because I'm a Pahadi person, I'm from Kumaon region, okay, so from the Uttaranchal. So my mother used to say that long time back, that is the criteria which was set, that the girls should be having a small eyes, small eyes, and she should be having a short height, not she should not be taller. My mom was both. My mom was tall. My mom had a very big eyes. So she was not. However, in today's context, she was very beautiful, but in that context, she was not. So that's how it changes, the criteria for different communities. Now, taking further, now see how this clothing has been changed, the fabric has been changed, started taking like a pattern started emerging, how tribes have taken further, the community has taken further in terms of giving a new dimension to the fabric. Talking about the jewelry, if I talk about the jewelry in the like primitive era, prior time, how it was made out of shell, it was made out of beads, it was made out of bones, or whatever the available natural resources were. So if you see that these are all sharp, it was sharp teeth, okay, and this is wolf teeth. It's a part of the wolf cut tooth, and there's like again part of it, and how they've been put together with a string or with some kind of a metal, bronze metal, or some kind of thread. So that's how it took place. And this is the old jewelry which is made out of bone and the shells and the stones. Now it got transformed into this, where it was more shaped oriented, which was more processed. The color also got embedded into it, and later on it took something like this kind of shape. And nowadays, in Amazon, in fact, there's one friend of mine, very good friend of mine, she's there in Amazon, and she's doing the research with the tribes right now. Okay, so she not research, but she's got a couple of friends there, and she goes and she travels, takes the photographs. She has made such good friendship with those tribes that she tries to go every second year, every after a couple of years, to meet them, and she just spends her time for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks with them. And she was talking, because I've seen those almost live, these beads which are being produced in Amazon tribal communities. They're extremely beautiful, extremely beautiful. The kind of color uses they have is just mesmerizing, absolutely mind-blowing. And how it has been taken forward, where the shape has also started emerging in. where the colors also have got a pattern. Okay, so it is becoming very stylized jewelry. So that's how, so from here again it's a stylized. This is also stylized, but this is of different. Uh, it is a different contemporization. However, it is a different contemporization as per the period. So that's what the establishment out here of the jewelry and clothing is. Now, if I talk about the, uh, I mean, this is, frankly speaking, this is one of my favorite because I was glued to these pictures. They were like kind of, they started staring at me. These pictures, they're so beautiful. I mean, what is this? What exactly are we taking our inspiration from? We are taking our inspiration from our history only, or our surroundings, or our, you know, uh, next to our people. And that is the perfect example how the tribal communities fashion, it has been more modernized, it has been more taken forward. Okay, and it has been glamorized, if I say. If you see what, I don't know whether what to talk about it and what to say. It's a perfect photo shoot if I talk about as a fashion. Look at this makeup on the face. Okay, the bustier and the the way she's like carrying all this, and the background itself, everything is very well defined as if it is meant for a particular photo shoot to glamorize the tribal community and their attire. Look at this, a person with these kind of bones, you know, which has been made it as a kavach. And look at the headgear. I mean, brilliant. And this, there is another thing which I can tell you, like these headgears have got a very big significance in the tribal community, because not only it is a beauty quotient, but at the same time it's a status symbol as well. It's a status quotient as well, which means with these headgears and with these jewelry itself, you can determine and you can classify the caste, creed, and the person in the community, in the tribes itself. So the person who's a king or the prince will have a different kind of a crown, which is a headgear, and a community which is a like little more stronger community, big community, they will have a different headgears, so on. Now, if I take it forward, what is happening in our we have, everyone knows that we have this in Rio, we are having this carnival in Brazil, and which is around 40 days before the Easter it takes place, and the entire city, the entire world actually gets painted in the same attire. Actually, if I talk about it, people, they come all the way from the world. It is like the largest gathering in the world which happens here. And look at the attire, look at everything, which is like now what all the sequences, the crystals, the semi-precious stones, all these have got embedded. But where it has been taken from, it has been inspired from the ancient period, and it has been taken from the our tribal communities, and it has been glamorized further. So in a nutshell, I can say that we are doing the fashion, we are having the fashion, but this fashion is not just a couple of centuries back or some 3 centuries back. No, it has been there for a very, very, very long period. It has been there for many, thousands of years back. Subconsciously, people were doing this fashion. So that's what it is from my side for this particular session. Now we will have some kind of a dialogue, and we will have the some question answers if you have any. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can just stop the screen sharing, then we can see
Just
everyone.
okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
So if anybody has some queries or something they would want to discuss or talk about.
I would like it's not only just the question, it can be something to share also. It's not just the question, okay? Because as I said, I know few things, you know few things, but not all of us know those few things. But if we share, all of us will be aware of those few things. So I think this is the approach which we need to have. Please share if you have it. Like I talked about my own, like in my hometown, like long time back, how it was. My mother, she was not a very, from that point of view, from those criteria, she was not beautiful. But in today's context, she was the most beautiful lady. So that's how. Like in China, what happens? Uh, more the smaller, like cinemascopic eyes is okay. More that girl will be beautiful. So these are the criterias which people have. So anything which you would like to share? Anything?
So I would like to share about Japan. Recently, I saw a anime movie, and I just realized that those Japanese kimonos that the girls wear, the geishas wear,
Yes, yes,
okay,
yes,
and they put on a very white makeup,
yes,
but
yes,
they used
absolutely.
to make their teeth black, and that
Okay.
was shocking, and that was a beauty standard over there. They used to darken their teeth, and they used to make their face white. So it was a weird beauty standard at that time, and it was only for the like a particular time. So that was
Uh-huh.
quite interesting, and that I came to know from an animation movie. So
Oh,
that
that's
is
great.
something new. Even in
That's great.
China, that you were talking about, the small feet,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a documentary which I had seen, and that a girl actually experimented with it. Okay, and she showed like how in China they used to
They get
restrict.
crooked, yeah. They get crooked legs and all.
Yeah, so they used to get crooked, and she actually tied her feet
Oh,
for at least few hours, and
oh,
then she checked her measurements. So it was slightly less.
correct,
So that's how they used to do.
correct, correct.
Yeah.
There is something which also I would like to share out here. In our last session, and in this session also, I just spoke about that. How do we design anything, and how do we put anything on the paper? We do design, or we do put anything on the paper or illustrate, which we see around, right? Which we see around, because we have been, like as I told you in the last this session, that if I were to ask to draw a female's face, okay, a beautiful female face, okay, so what is the beauty? For me, the beauty would be that it will be little roundish face, okay, little round face, big, definitely eyes would be there, okay, big eyes, and uh, nose, small nose, okay, and beautiful lips, okay, something like that, which will be more of a round face, if I say, and fair complexion. So something like that, okay. Whether fair is not, that's not the criteria, but big eyes definitely would be a criteria for me. Why so? The reason, because ever since I've been born, I've seen my sisters like this. I've seen my beautiful ma'am when I was like 5 6 year old. So I saw my class teacher. She was the most beautiful for me at that point of time. Okay, so she had a big eyes. Then I was in the college. My girlfriend had the big eyes. She was the most beautiful. I saw my mom. She was the most beautiful for me. Then I saw all the Pratimas, Durga Ma, okay, all these during my, because I was the most active participant of Durga Puja, okay. So I used to see that Durga Ma ki Pratima, beautiful eyes. So what did I see? I see all that round face, that, big eyes, and I'm bound to put that only on the paper, nothing else. Then I will give you a very beautiful example of the same. uh, these Chinese people, okay, no, sorry, Japanese people, they were given a. I've seen that animation movie, by the way. They were given the task of uh, depicting the Ramayana, depicting the Ramayana. Okay, Japanese. They were narrated the entire story. Okay, how it was, and believe me, I was like shocked to see the way they had narrated it. हमारे पास जो वो रथ था ना, what is it called, वो जो जिसमें रावण सीता को बिठा के ले जाता है, what is it called? There is one.
Pushpak Viman.
Pushpak Viman, Pushpak, okay, that Pushpak one. So what Japanese people they had done, they had made that, but it was more of a craft ship, that spacecraft kind of a thing they had done, That Pushpak Viman was very, very futuristic kind of a thing. And even the sword and all they had, it was a very futuristic, like, something very gadget oriented, very, very futuristic. So everything was getting very futuristic in their body, in their, what they had depicted. Getting me? Even the Ram, imagine Ram is having this kind of an eye, and the Sita is also having this kind of an eye. So why it was? The reason, because they had seen the same. So they interpreted in their own manner. If the same thing is asked to interpret to be interpreted by someone who's in Africa, okay, so how he will be doing? So the criteria of perception, the perception criterias and the beauty criterias are all based on the kind of society you are in. Understand? You learn from there. Why do we say that Italians they have this no matter what, how big, how small, how rich, how poor person is, he or she definitely will have this fashion quotient in him or her. I'm telling you, I'd been to Italy. I was there in Italy. So what I saw the same, and I was observing the same. Everyone had the same. Like even if a person who's who's begging on the road, he will have his guitar and he will have a very tomboyish kind of a something, and he's a beggar, but very stylish kind of a beggar. Getting me? Because that's what the fashion is over there. I mean, that's what fashion is like. It's a part of their life. जैसे हमारे घर में हम it's part of our life कि हम सुबह उठ के हम लोग पूजा करते हैं, right? ये हमारा है, गायत्री मंत्र पढ़ते हैं, right? It is the same like for them, it's like their religion. So what you see, you embed in your life, and that always comes out of it. Germans, they can never ever think beyond. हमारे में क्या होता है? We are born to see the जुगाड़ in our life. ठीक है ना? हमारे में जुगाड़ है, बचपन से हमने जुगाड़ सीखा हुआ है, right? We have been seeing that, we have been hearing this word, but उधर कोई जुगाड़ नाम का there is nothing. Because I remember there was a person, he was a German, okay, in the IT this thing with me. So he was in our IT department. So I told him कि यार तू ऐसे मत कर, इसको ऐसे कर दे, So what? How does it matter, यार? So the way we are having कि, by end of the day I need the result, यार, end result. Who cares? And he actually started aspiring. He started getting anxiety because that person can never think of going beyond the process, because that's how they have been born with. They are born with the processes. They are born with the, A 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 only. There is nothing else. So they are so system oriented. They are so process oriented that they cannot go beyond. And that so they are not so organic the way we are, because ours is very organic. We are like amoeba. कहीं भी डाल दो, कुछ भी कर दो, हम सब कुछ कर सकते हैं. Okay, so because we have been seeing that, we are having in our country, we are having the very, how do I say, we are having the chaotic order. That's what we live in. It's very chaotic, yet it is in order. And we are very much happy with it because we got accustomed with it, right? Anything which you would like to share with me?
Yeah, I think I'd like to add something here, Raj.
Yeah.
That I agree with you that we all come with certain perceptions. We've grown up in a certain environment, and हमारे लिए whatever we've seen since we were born seems to be the only way of doing something. Mm-hmm. And that in a way can also be a roadblock.
Yes.
Sometimes what happens, you are unable to understand another person's point of view. You seem to believe कि जो मेरा आइडिया है वही अच्छा है, दूसरे को कुछ नहीं आता है या दूसरा ठीक नहीं बोल रहा है. And sometimes we take a very some kind of a pride in being stupid. I'm over exaggerating, but sometimes we feel कि जब हम इंडिया की हम बात करते हैं, और ये एग्जांपल मैंने बहुत बार ये सुना है और बात होती है कि we are very adaptable and we are like we can do जुगाड़ और ये वो. I agree that this is a very, very important ability to have. To be flexible within your circumstances is good, but we take it to a different level altogether.
Yes.
Even when it is not required, we still do it. When a process would be a better thing to follow, when there are certain rules which make sense, but because we feel that we have this जुगाड़ वाला idea, and because we feel कि हमारा idea, हम तो बहुत smart हैं, अंग्रेज बेवकूफ हैं, मैंने भी कहा हुआ है, I'm not blaming you or anybody, I also had this, ये देखो कितने बुद्धू लोग हैं, they just follow this process, कितना बेकार, इनको समझ नहीं आ रही, इसको शॉर्टकट मार लो, वो शॉर्टकट जो है वो एक बार चलता है, जो प्रोसेस है वो हमेशा चलता है, which we tend to not give importance to. We seem to think that the importance justifies the means, which is a very wrong perception to have, because the means is sometimes as important as the end product. अगर आपका सिस्टम ठीक नहीं है, अगर आपका प्रोसेस ठीक नहीं है, तो मे बी बाय हुक और क्रुक एक बार आपका एंड प्रोडक्ट ठीक हो जाएगा, पर अगर आपको बार बार वो काम ढंग से करना है तो वो नहीं होगा.
Completely agreed.
Okay, now
कि प्रोसेस की इम्पोर्टेंस जो है वो हम निगेट क्यों करते हैं एज टीचर्स, वी आल्सो निगेट कि चलो यार बन तो गया ना, अच्छा बन गया, प्रोसेस फॉलो हुआ नहीं हुआ कोई बात नहीं, पर वो एक बार बन गया, वो दूसरी बार नहीं बनेगा.
नहीं देखिए, जहाँ तक बात रही सोसाइटी की एंड जहाँ तक बात रही डिजाइन की, if I talk about, see, first of all, the example which I gave, it was not that boasting ourselves as an Indian that we are flexible. We are flexible, that is a good quality, but there's something called using that ability rather than misusing that capability.
I totally agree with that.
So the problem happens that we misuse it.
Yeah, because
as a society,
only this is the correct way. ये एक तरीका, इससे हो तो रहा है ना.
Always believe in, always there is something called the look into the roots, not the fruits. Fruits are bound to come in a correct manner if the roots are correct. So which means there is a process which needs to be taken place in a proper manner, and then it is a sequential process with which it goes further and the end result comes. And that will be much more strong, profound and unchallengeable. In Jugaad, things will be challengeable, but here not. That precisely. So this is, I completely agree with you on this point. And secondly, what am I trying to say? That we have been born, and it's always so called. I will give you an example. A good companies in the retail segment or any of the segment, good companies are always process oriented. Whichever companies which are not process oriented, they are people driven. They will go up on the ladder on the top level and they fall in the similar manner. But something which is process oriented, it might not be going like this, but it will have a gradual growth of a gradual graph going up in a growth.
Sustainable.
It will be sustaining, and it will be keep on going for a long time.
Yeah.
Long run. So that's what the process is all about. So this is I'm just trying to tell you out here. Second thing which I want to tell you out here, that as Jasween you said, that whatever we see in our society, we put it onto the people, right? And we take the inspiration from surrounding. Now, it is a roadblock, absolutely. It is a roadblock that why we cannot go beyond what we should be doing then, if we have to go out of it. We should be, that's where the research comes. That's where the research comes in the takes place. And that is the reason the history of design and what is history of design? It's actually a research, someone to sensitize towards the research. Okay. Now I will give you a brilliant example. Okay, brilliant. I mean, because I'm very much, I keep on getting all these stories and all. Small story I will tell you. It was, you people must have seen a movie called Hina. Have you heard this? Hina? Okay, Hina movie. Brilliant songs, okay, sung by Lata Mangeshkar ji, okay, and music has been given by whom? Music has been given by Ravindra Jain. Ravindra Jain is who? Ravindra Jain is the one who was like blind from his childhood, okay? So now you will be surprised. I'm going to tell you that Raj Kapoor was making this movie, Hina. It got, I think it was released in 91 or I think 92 or something. It got released in this. And the work had started already in 88 or 87 for this movie, right? So Ravindra Jain was appointed for the music by Raj Kapoor, right? So now what happened? He had signed him, and suddenly he said, I mean, when the music had to, had to be like, had to be shown, or some, some lyrics were to be shown to Raj Kapoor. Raj Kapoor said, let's do one thing. After listening to just one or two lines, okay, of Ravindra Jain, what he said, okay, just hold on. I think I need to postpone it. And the kind of face he made, it was very shocking for Ravindra Jain. And he thought that perhaps, I think he's not liking my composition, so I don't know what, there's something wrong with me. And again, he came back with the composition, which again did not like by Raj Kapoor ji. And he said, let's do one thing. We will go to, we'll go for a, a little bit of break. And both of them, and he took him to Kashmir. He took him to Kashmir. From Bombay, he took him to Kashmir. And there, no work, nothing. They just roamed around, went to the villages, went to the market, had food, learning here and there, talking to people, nothing else. And then after 1 month, he said, okay, now the honeymoon period is over. So let's get on to the work now. Okay, so there was a task which was given to you. Okay, let me see what composition do you make. And when Ravindra Jain, he made the composition, it was starkly different from the earlier which was made. The earlier compositions which were coming, that was coming off on the base of the Ramayana, because Ramayana ka jo banaya tha na sara music, it was done by Ravindra Jain. So since it was a contemporary, the beginning, the making of Hina and the Ramayana, they were contemporary. So Ravindra Jain was still in that, that aura, still in that period of taking the composition ahead. And that's what Raj Kapoor wanted to break it. And he wanted to break this one. That's why he took him to the same place, Kashmir, so that now he can absorb, observe, even if subconsciously, and he will be having a different output altogether. And that's what the research is. Sometimes it is conscious, sometimes it is unconscious, but the result comes accordingly. And now you can see that what the output was in Hina, all on the base of Kashmir, that Wadia or wo sara cheez jo chal raha hai, like all that. Anything else?
Sir, I wanted to add one point.
Yeah, tell me.
There are some principles and theories regarding the appreciation of beauty, what we all are intended to or inclined to, like the golden mean
Yes.
ratio and
Yeah,
Fibonacci
sure.
series and the hourglass figure of for a woman. And,
Right.
these are universal theories which we follow unknowingly,
Correct.
and which is which can be considered as the secondary research which we all follow.
Yep. Correct. Absolutely.
Not just only what we see all around, we have all these theories as the guideline for us to make something beautiful, to make something
These are not
reasonable.
actually theories, Vijay. As such, they're not theories. There's something which how nature works. So when you talk about Fibonacci numbers, when you talk about the golden mean, this is what we see in nature, and this is what was taken up by the Greeks to form all their principles of proportion. So they have absolutely everything to do with proportion. What looks good and what doesn't look good, it comes from there. So as beauty and proportion ko agar aap equate kare, to yes, maybe they make some sense, but they are not primarily have anything to do with beauty as such. They have everything to do with proportions.
They say the human body, our
So
parts
that's all proportions. That is all proportion. How things एक के बाद दूसरी चीज कब आएगी, कहाँ आएगी, वो उसको dictate करता है. अगर आपने Fibonacci numbers देखे हो और आपने you've seen the spiral and you've seen the flower petals, they all have a set pattern. That is a natural pattern which happens. So that has everything to do with proportions, not as much as beauty. So if you want to equate beauty and proportion, that's fine with me, but not really starkly with beauty. No.
Okay, so Vijay, I will be a little supporting out here in terms of saying the beauty. Fine, that's okay. Something which is proportionate, okay, that looks beautiful.
Yeah, the
Simple.
proportion
That's
is
okay.
1.1.
Yeah, whatever.
1.618 is the proportion. All the beautiful things we get in the same proportion.
So that's okay. That's okay. Beauty, see, beauty and proportions, they cannot be separated. Okay, a very good looking face. Okay, a very good looking face, but the body is not in the proportion, so that face does not look good. Okay, an average face, but the body is in completely proportion. Okay, so that also enhances the beauty of the face. So all I'm trying to say, this cannot be two separated things. Yes, there is a guideline. Of course, what you are saying is correct, but at the same time, what you need to gather from the surrounding, that is also important, because you cannot, if I give you an example of making a bag, okay, for say a tribal community, so that time you might be looking at the golden proportion. Okay, that's okay, I'm just giving an example. But on top of it, what you will be looking at, you will not be having your say a Kerala or the Gujarati embellishment on top of it. You will have to do it as per the community which you are in, because that might be appealing to them. It may be the one which you are doing, that will be for yourself, where you are coming from. Okay, but for the community, you will have to work for them. So you need to work both the things together. And if you talk about golden proportion, who has given this? Why do we call the Greek god? Greek god is supposed to be the most beautiful. Why? Because everything is supposed, I mean, that's exactly, I'm trying to tell you why it is supposed to be the most beautiful. Must be some reason, because everything is very well proportionate. Your eyes to the nostrils, that edge, and then the lips, okay? Everything. The chin, jawline, chest, the proportion of shoulder to the chest to the torso, everything. So all these things matter in the proportion, and which enhances the beauty. Okay?
Yes. And also the origin of clothing, we have theories like adornment theory, protection theory, and
correct.
How we choose our clothing according to the needs of an individual.
Yeah, correct. I mean, see, this, when we go towards the, I mean, when we take the period like, how do I say? If you go, say, around 1,000 years back, okay, so not 1,000, maybe 500, 6 years back, then the, the clothing sense and all this starts coming in, correct? The proper way. You say layers or layers of clothing is coming, furry and big, flowery kind of a thing. But if you talk about the very primitive, the very first one, the Stone Age, the very first one, what was there? There was no style quotient or something. It was just a function which was required.
Protection.
It was just a function which was required. Function means they have to survive. Okay, they have to shelter themselves. They have to, so that time cow hide, not cow hide, but any animal hide, okay, which was furry, maybe the polar bear or maybe the bear or whatever. So during the winter time, they will be using those hides. But during the summertime, they will be using, or maybe not using anything, or maybe using just the leaves. So it was it. But later on, as I said, when the gradual evolution happened, and humankind started becoming much more smarter, then all these things started playing the main role or the major role in his life. And then beauty also started coming in, aesthetic also started coming in along with the function. Okay, so so that's how it changes. It's an evolutionary process, the design or anything, I would say, matter of fact.
Yeah. So talking about evolution, if you would like to discuss the the small assignment that you had given last time.
Yes. Okay. So anything which you people would like to share with me, please.
Yeah, anybody who would like to show their assignment or whatever,
Akshay,
they can share their screen. So maybe we'll start with Akshay. Akshay, you can share your screen and show whatever you have. Yes. And next we'll see Anmol.
Ma'am, I have done on grain grinding.
Okay, if you could just maximize the viewing area, if you could present it. Yeah. Just run it as a presentation. ऊपर से just click on that F5 कर दो या नीचे से कर दो. Just run it as a presentation.
ठीक है.
So, ma'am, I have done on both commercial and in the local, like as a home. So first they were used to have like a stone के बीच में जो खड्डा होता था उसमें से उस गोल पत्थर के साथ, and then they started like seal batta style. Then in India also used to have it in third picture in the
अक्षय
like,
काम करोगे? अक्षय सॉरी,
Yes,
कैन
sir.
यू डू मी अ फेवर, अपना कर्सर को जो है ना उस पर्टिकुलर पिक्चर के ऊपर लेके जाओ which you are
Okay,
talking
sir.
about. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So like there's a style, and in South India also we have Arthakulu, there's something like the call in the grinding stone. So, and then there's a grinding in India, northern side, and it used to also in a medieval times at in Europe, the same kind of mechanism. And then after certain windmills, like till yesterday, I didn't know that windmills were like the floor mills. And then there was a water mills.
Yes,
They
yes.
used to run in the water by side, and then it changes to the canal with the can. And then there was the animal used to they, and that's how the treadmill invented again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be with the horse or could be with any animals. And then this machinery system come, which we locally see, and this is like around after 1950 it started very commercial production of like big scale, and nowadays we have like this kind of plants. Even what interesting thing I got to know about reading this, that the made like white flour, it was like it also shows racism. People started using white flour as it looks beautiful, like the outcome of the food was beautiful. उससे पहले होल व्हीट फ्लावर होता था, तो उससे पेस्ट्रीज वगैरह बहुत ज्यादा डार्क आती थी, ब्यूटीफुल नहीं थी, तो पीपल स्टार्टेड यूजिंग व्हाइट फ्लावर, बट उसकी वजह से काफी उनके न्यूट्रिशंस जाते थे. देन व्हाट वी नाउ आर सीइंग द ऑर्गेनिक्स, एंड सो दैट स्टोरी आई आल्सो वाजंट अवेयर. And in the home used to like a coffee grinder or a small grinder like with the metal, then it was a pedestal grinder. This is a normal atta chakki, and nowadays we have like this fancy like in the fancy term. So that I have done. Why did I choose this? Because I have like my family owns a spice factory, so I used to hear the stories about pehle aise mirchi peeste the, pehle baad mein how they started their business. So that's why I took this grinding. That's it, sir.
मजा आया अक्षय?
हाँ सर, काफी चीजें नई जानने को मिली.
That is the whole purpose. See, this is the purpose of the research, you know, which means you look for something, you look for one thing. Okay, you have a preconceived notion कि मेरे को ये करना है, but once you see that and you do the research, then you see this, what you are thinking and what you are trying to make or establish, that is already perhaps being existing. And not only that existing, there are some 10 other things which are also existing along with it.
Yes.
Then your perception change. Then you look from a different perspective altogether.
I
You
researched
change.
for like 3-4 hours, and I read like all about the how it changed and everything.
Correct.
So it was
Now-
very informative.
Now you talked about this. What is it called? The dog is on the, you know,
Yeah,
it is
treadmill.
treadmill kind of thing. Now you are saying treadmill has been emerged from here. I don't know. I do not know whether you are right or wrong. But for me, it is a very, I mean, interesting fact to look into. Okay. Then there is a. Then I'm telling you, I'd been to this place. Ladakh, okay, sometime back, around a couple of years back, I was in Ladakh. So in Ladakh, there is one place called Turtuk. Turtuk is supposed to be a most beautiful place on earth, okay? It is supposed to be, we call it as Ladakh ka Kashmir hai. It's a Kashmir of Ladakh. You know, it's very beautiful, extremely beautiful. तो वहाँ पे क्या है, ऊपर पहाड़ों से ना ऐसे पानी निकल के आता है. So what they have done, they have channelized the entire water in the channels, you know, जो नहर टाइप की होती है. So which is running across the entire village, lush green village. और वहीं पर जो है ये फ्लोर मिल जो है वो लगा हुआ है, जिसमें बहुत बड़े बड़े पत्थर है, 2 पत्थर है, और वो that is being run by this water.
Yes.
ठीक है, ये यहाँ से आ रहा है. मेरे जो होम टाउन में we had like, होम टाउन में अब तो खैर नहीं, now it is just all these things what I have in my hometown, they are like होते ना एंटीक पीसेस है सारे के सारे अभी, है ना? तो वहां पे एक कॉर्नर में एक चक्की रखी हुई है, ठीक है, ऐसे वो। और उससे पहले हमारा जो जो पोर्च है, मतलब जो आंगन जो होता है, ठीक है, उस आंगन में वहां पर देयर इज अ होल, ऐसे बड़ा सा। बाद में पता लगा कि देन आई गॉट टू हियर, लाइक आई सॉ सम पिक्चर्स आल्सो, पुरानी वाली बहुत, एंड आई गॉट टू हियर दैट वहां पे क्या होता था, धान कूटा जाता था उसके अंदर।
So
तो
we still use.
हाँ, तो कि दो लेडीज ऐसे करके, ऐसे वो हाथ से यूं यूं करती थी ऐसे करके उसमें ना, एंड दैट्स हाउ द धान यूज्ड टू कम आउट ऑफ इट। नॉट ओनली दैट, बट वहां पर जो है आपके गेहूं को काट के वहां पर लगाया जाता था उस एरिया में, एंड ऑन टॉप ऑफ इट वो दो बैलों की जो जोड़ी होती है उसको उसके ऊपर ऐसे रन किया जाता था, सो दैट with their feet it gets crushed and only the top paddy it comes out and the grain it comes out separately. तो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग, आई मीन सोचो कि किस ग्रास रूट लेवल पे पीपल दे स्टार्टेड डूइंग इट।
So, ऐसा यहाँ पे भी होता है, सॉरी सर।
हाँ बोलो बोलो, प्लीज प्लीज कैरी
So
ऑन।
like when I used to like in my childhood I've seen like जो किसान होते थे वो लोग क्या करते थे, जैसे कोई भी धान होता था उनको भर बोरी में भर के, या फिर बड़े बड़े उनके वो जो कैनवास के जो होते हैं सड़क पे रख देते ताकि गाड़ी जब निकले उस पे से तो वो उसके अंदर से अलग हो जाए, and then used to finish it like
ये this is a new thing which you are telling me because I never knew about it. It's a new thing learning for me, seriously.
So we have crop business again, so I've seen in this while traveling with dad. So ये ऐसे करते थे.
चलो good, hope you enjoyed it. Who's the next?
Raj, if we take presentation of everybody faster, it will be better because they all would like to show.
Yeah, fine. Please carry on.
Yeah, I'll do so.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. I'm
hi.
just going to share my screen. Hi, sir.
Hello.
So the object I've chosen is cooking stove. The reason I've chosen is because I grew up in a village and I have actually seen this evolution in my own house. So that's why I have chosen this object. And yeah. So if we talk about English people till 12th century, they used to cook in open fire. And as compared to English people, we Asians were very advanced. We are using this kind of chulha since 200 BC. Yeah, and after this chulha or this open fire, English people have started using this hearth, and it is nothing but actually वो लोग एक cemented stone से चिमनी जैसी एक place बनाते थे, then in that they used to cook, and सारा जो steam होता था, smoke होता था, वो चिमनी से ऊपर चला जाता था. After this, they in 17th century, around 17th century, they built this kind of stoves, cooking stoves, जिसके अंदर they used to fire wood, and with that heat they used to cook on the top. And at that point in time, in India, in Asia, we were using this kind of sigri. I think काफी लोगों ने देखी होगी. Yeah. And after this, in 1834, this kind of stove had been invented, which was with baking device. So, as we all know that English people are not dependent on. They are basically dependent on baking for food. Not like us Indian, we generally eat roti. So that's why our cooking tops, our cooking stoves are not included with baking device. But if we see that, if we see English people's kitchen and their gas stoves, all their gas stoves are included with baking devices. After this, 1834, this is around 18. So in 1826, only gas and electric chulha were invented, but most of the people were not using it because these were expensive. So it was invented, but it was not in use much. So yeah, this is the gas stove, and this is the electric stove. And after this was the design slightly funky version of gas stove and electric stove, which was invented in 1920s or 1930s. And this is we have seen in India in our kitchens around 19th 19th century. And this is something I really like. This is a vintage cooking stove, electric cooking stove, that was invented around 1950s. And these are the cooking stoves we use right now in our kitchens. And this is something I would like to share, that because this evolution I have personally seen in my kitchen. As I've shared that I grew up in a village. So this is something I've actually seen in my kitchen, in my home, that my dadi used to cook in our haveli. My dadi and servants used to cook in this chulha, and then dheere dheere jaise graduation hua, and then now we use this. So yeah, this is the kind of graduation, this is the kind of evolution I have seen personally. So yeah, that's why I thought that I can share this thing.
Fantastic. Very nice. Very nice. Fantastic. Anmol, the second one, which I like the most, the second one, can you see the on the top? Second one. Beautiful. I mean, the way the chimney has been going up there, you know, and less smoke can come out and everything goes up. It's a very beautiful, I mean, fantastic. So today what we are doing, this chimney thing, it's the same, the same DNA. It has been, you know, beautified with a different material, but the function remains the same, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, next. Very good. Anmol.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Anmol, if you could stop the screen sharing.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Can I go next? Just for ma'am.
Okay, Swati.
Hi, Swati.
Yeah. Hi. So they've taken a very small. Yeah, Swati here. Yeah. Yeah, hi everyone. So I've taken a very small tool which is very familiar to bakers, and I think during this lockdown also we have heard about the Dalgona coffee, and you need a whisk to make it. So I've taken a whisk, which is a small equipment from the kitchen. I'll just screen share. So initially, this is how a whisk was looking like. It was a bunch of twigs kept together, which is tied at one corner, and then they beat egg. Or especially in the European or the Western world, they used to, as we were mentioning about stove and baking, it was quite common. You know, that was a requirement that they wanted. In 19th century, the wire whisk came into being with the Victorians popularizing, you know, changing the forms. And what I saw is that there are different kinds of whisk for different purposes. For instance, this is the very common whisk that we have, which is the balloon whisk, which we all use. And since, you know, metal can't be used on a non-stick pan or any pan which can't, you know, take any metal tools, there was also silicone whisk that came into being to be used on a metal saucepan or something. And you also have a whisk which is a bit pointer, especially for mixing sauce. So in Italy or in France, you see that they make a lot of pastas and sauce-based food. So they wanted something with a little pointer edges so that they can scrape from the corners of the pan. And yeah, then even this sauce was also for the similar use as like the French whisk. And there is also, you know, if you want to froth a hot chocolate, which is in a tumbler, which is in a glass, a cylindrical container, you also have a twirl whisk, you know, which you can put inside the tumbler and whisk it. And there is also a whisk which is generally used for frothing a matcha, used in Japan, where, you know, they you use it while making the matcha tea. And this is made out of a single bamboo, and they just, you know, beat it up and, you know, make it more fibrous, and, you know, it's just from a single bamboo. And nowadays we know there are hand mixers which are electronic, and yeah, you can just hold it, and they also come with different kinds of tools. And there is also the most advanced one, which is a stand mixer, which goes on your tabletop. So yeah, it was interesting, you know, researching about, and I'm especially for people who are into baking, it's nice, you know. For me as a person who liked baking, it was kind of an interesting topic to, you know, work on, and yeah, it was quite interesting to do this. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Swati, so you are a baker, huh? So this we
Yeah,
continue today, huh?
yeah, little.
Good.
Still learning.
Okay. So by end of this course, you will be giving all of us a bake, you know, cake to all of us. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The next one.
Can I Go next.
I'll do it.
Yeah, Aarti from Mumbai, then we can come to Aarti from Surat.
Okay, okay, fine. So, hi everyone. So, I've researched on very basic utensil you can talk about is cooking pots. So, it's very, very basic. So, how it was there in the earlier time and now what we are doing and coming back to again to the scientific things. So, here is my screen. So, I've done the evolution of cooking pots. So, it's like inhabitants from the Indus Valley began to have clay pots. So I've started my research only from after the Indus Valley and then all Mohenjo-daro and all. So they were having clay pots. Then it came to all basic shapes which they consider while cooking. And then it came like, you know, they didn't had the handles to hold for and the like how to hold it. So they started having this stand kind of thing where they could directly cook and they could directly take it from the spoons or something like that. So it was something designed like this. Later on, this started. Yeah.
Your screen is not visible.
Your screen should be. Yeah.
Share your
Okay.
screen.
Okay. One sec. Does it started now?
No.
No.
Yes, starting now.
It started? Okay. Something went wrong. So it's visible, right?
Yeah, your desktop is visible. Yeah, correct. Now it is visible.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So it's about, as I said, it's about cooking pots. So I have done from the Indus Valley civilization. So the Harappan civilization from 2300 to 2200 BC. So these were the earlier pots which they look like for cooking. So all these stands, what they had over here, so they didn't have handles and all. So they used to hold with a cloth or something like that. Later on, they had this inbuilt stand which could help them to keep the pots on the ground itself. And this later on they came up with these handle things which was more variation in design aspects. So I have done a PPT on design aspects thing. So later on in the Bronze Age, or you can say in the Iron Age, then as sir told today in today's lectures that they had iron and they used to like I said, peat ke sab kuch banate the with the iron and all. So this were the pans which was introduced very first in the earliest century over there. Then they had buckets. Then we had this iron thing which would have handles and all. And then the basic kadhai shape came into things. So these were the cooking pots earlier where they used to cook. And later on, we came to the current modified version where we have all types of metals where bronze, iron pots, and then steel, aluminium. Now we are trending non-sticks, then marble. And again, we are going back to a little bit of history where people are started using with the clay pots. And they are having decorative clay pots and everything to decorative, you know, like, so they are going again sustainable. So where we are again going back to sustainability. And I have also heard that some people are also making edible pots, which you can after cooking directly eat also. I couldn't find the image of that, but this is what we are right now into. So this is, I have directly shown 3 type of generations in very short form.
That's great, fantastic. Why people are getting back to the clay and earthen pot? The reason because it has got a aroma, okay, which gets mixed with the food, and it really tastes good. Perfect example is if you take chai. The moment you take it in the cooler, I always prefer to take it in the cooler.
Yes,
because it tastes really good, you know, in that. No matter how.
Right.
So this is the reason, you know, that's why people, along with the sustainability and whatever you call it as, you know, that nowadays is in the vogue, but at the same time, the taste, which matters really a lot to the people.
Smoky touch.
Smoky, yeah, the smoky touch, correct, absolutely. This is one part. And secondly, I would say, like, people who are interested in the history, especially the way, if whosoever is in Delhi or around, ever get to come to Delhi, okay? So in the National Museum, the very first gallery happens to be the Harappa gallery. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Indus civilization wala.
Yeah. I read that.
So I've been there. In fact, I spent some time over there. In fact, I did my industrial training. So in National Museum. Okay. So that's where I had some 15-20 days. I was just exploring the same. So there are 2-3 galleries adjacent to each other. Brilliant. I mean, you must get onto each and every detail of it. There are what you said, the vessel, the pot. So there are some pot which have been found out. So one portion was found somewhere else, one portion was found somewhere else. They picked it, they put it together, they tried to, then one portion is missing somewhere. They're still trying to figure out, I mean, that's how they're trying to, all the excavations has been done, and the people, scholars, they tried their level best to make sure that they can get the complete pot, So that's all. Brilliant. I mean, you see it and believe it, then you will like it.
Yeah,
like that.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Next.
Aarti from Surat, can we just have your presentation?
I was actually more enthusiastic. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
So I was not actually enthused by the infrastructure of the kitchen, as I'm always a textile person. So I thought I would do something on this because I'm actually into home furnishing design also. So I found out this that there was a tablecloth in this ancient time, and this had some ornamentation of this kind. I'll do a larger screen maybe. So this was ornamentation, the marked by the blue arrow. So this was a tablecloth. So this was a Roman dining atmosphere in which the printed tablecloth kind of thing was used. So my focus of the research was tablecloth, and I found out that there was a special pattern in which these tablecloths were used. The tablecloth had always a hang, and I used to wonder why this hang was there. So I went into further speculation, but I found two things then. There was a hang, as well as the tablecloths were usually white. So I read somewhere that why it was white. It was white to show the colors and the textures of the food, and linen was white at that time. It was not dyed, and although it was dyed in natural colors. So this was actually table linen, which you used to call at that time. And this is some medieval dinner banquet, and this is the Last Supper, as we all know. So we can see the drape and the fall of the tablecloth, which is still carried on. As Mr. Raj told, that some things need not change from the very beginning if they were, well established. So this was one thing which we have not changed: white table linen. And white table linen is always lovable. So in fact, we use the base still as white, and even in vintage time, this was on the Vogue cover page. White or pastel colored tablecloth. It usually covered the legs, and I could not find a valid reason, but then I went deep into it, that it was hung, or it was usually covered because there could not be an accident while you are eating it or something like that. It should not fall off because your hands might struck up. So my findings were two. One was that table linen was always usually white or pastel colors, and there are now variations of course, but the basics remain the same: the hang and the white linen. So this was a short discovery which I found out, and I usually advocate.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, but still I would urge you that just try to look beyond, what you liked, what you are like, what you like and what you do. That is a part of you, but something which you do not do, and if you get a chance to look into that, it will be really, it's icing on the cake for your work, believe me. Okay, try to do that. Okay, yeah, thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, next.
Okay, Kavita.